So many of our favorites to watch. Oh look, now they're being bashed. I guess that's what we should expect on the Bullied Nostalgia Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Bullied Nostalgia Season 3 recap. Bullied Nostalgia is exactly what it sounds like. Someone coming along and taking your most precious pop culture memories, taunting them, asking them for the lunch money, and then beating them until they concede. Only in this case, it's two men born in the 80s being bullied by two much younger men born in the 2000s. Time to check in to see if all four of us are here. Tim?
Hey, I'm here.
Chance? That's me. Kylan?
I'm gone fishing. I'm sorry. I'm not here.
Gone
I
fishing?
have to do the podcast without me.
I always took you to have a strong fisherman
I
vibe.
always go fishing all the time. Don't you know?
Does anyone want to check if John's here?
Hello? Is John there?
Here.
I thought you were going to do
as
something
usual,
with that,
we
but
recorded
sure.
12 episodes this season. We had 1986 Fluffy Dogs, 1995's Ace Ventura 2, Nature Calls, 1994's The Great Valley Adventure, A Land Before Time 2. We had our experimental episode of What's That Movie, 1992's Three Ninjas, 1991's Ernest Scared Stupid, 1990's animated movie The Nutcracker Prince, 1986 animated TV show Silverhawks, 2017's TV movie Descendants 2, 2002's Treasure Planet, 1996's Beast Wars, and 1985's Sesame Street's Follow That Bird. If you have not listened to these episodes, which are technically episodes 27 to 38, I highly recommend you pause this episode and go do that.
All of them.
All of them. Go binge them.
If you haven't listened to them all today, it doesn't count.
I think it is like 12 hours.
It's a lot, and I know we haven't talked to each other in a while, but I feel like we've talked to each other a lot.
I've heard Chance's voice so much.
So if you haven't listened to those episodes, this conversation might confuse you. Essentially, we're taking a big bird's eye view on Season 3, reflecting on the changes, experiments, and big laughs, as well as looking to the future. So here we go.
Yeah, we're taking this from the viewpoint of a 6-year-old.
Okay, Tim.
Yes.
Start us off. Give us the groundwork, because we don't actually really know what's happening bigger picture podcast-wise. That's all you. What's been going on stats-wise?
Yeah, okay, so I dug into the data a little bit here to let people know what it's like to run a podcast. You know, that was part of the original vision when we did the first season in review. My goal was to tell people how I had sorted stuff out, so if it was something that you wanted to do, that it would be more approachable. So we use Spotify to upload our podcast to the internet. And so what happens is it creates what's called an RSS feed or address, which can be shared with as many other platforms as you want it to. And so that means we make an address with Spotify, and then that address is shared to YouTube, it's shared to iHeart, it's shared to iTunes, Audible, Amazon, yeah, all of the above. What's tricky about it is that it's very hard to get statistics that tell you everything that's going on every platform. Most of the statistics that I can pull are just Spotify listeners, but that is probably the majority or a big chunk of our audience. So at least it's an educated guess. I was surprised to see that we have listeners in 33 of the 50 American states. Our biggest 3 states that our listeners come from are Florida, California, and Virginia. An extra big shout out to the city of Lake Worth, Florida, for being our biggest community of listeners outside of Western Canada. I don't know anybody there, so cool. I appreciate you.
Do we know how big Lake Worth is? Is it like a town of 50 people?
And they all listen to our
Time to
podcast?
Google. 42,000 people.
Oh, it is not big.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
42,000
we like
people.
you. You're awesome.
Also, of the 12 Canadian provinces, we have listeners in 7 of them. Obviously, Alberta and BC are our biggest audiences. We live in those provinces.
And we listen to ourselves a lot.
That's right. That's right. All of the people we actually know physically are in those provinces. But you may be surprised to know that our 3rd highest audience in Canada is out of Nova Scotia,
Oh.
which I think really puts a wrench in when Chance said that he thought that this was all people using VPNs.
No,
I don't
I
know
said
who
that.
on
I
earth
said
is
that.
using a VPN in Nova Scotia. As far as our audience is concerned, we talked a tiny bit about this a few episodes ago when I got Spotify Wrapped. The age demographics are not a surprise for a show about nostalgia. 83% of our listeners are 35 to 44 years old. 8% are 28 to 34%. 3% are 18 to 22. And then the rest of the age categories are all 2% or less.
No grandmas.
Well, there's a few grandmas. 2% of our audience are 60 and up. So there's a couple grandmas in there.
And Tim's about to be a grandpa.
Oh my
so
goodness. Not
what
60.
we define as a grandparent could be in their 40s.
It's true.
Yeah, so because all these different websites aggregate totals differently, it is very hard to get a solid count on how many people have listened to our podcast. My best educated guess from putting all the numbers together is that we're probably just shy of 10,000. So obviously not ever going to be viral. None of us are ever going to make a living off this podcast, but certainly when the 4 of us got together and recorded a few conversations, none of us expected that to be more than 4. So it's a weird world. I mean, we did talk about this earlier in the season. Our 3 most listened to episodes are Season 2's Muppets Tonight, Season 1's Superman 4, and Season 2's Descendants. Oh, John, as far as intro is concerned, I guess you didn't say just yet, as we presumably go into Season 4, we do have to choose our TV shows and our movies that we will be watching. So if our audience wants to have input as to what we tackle, please feel free to email us at bulliedpod@gmail.com.
May I save?
Thank you.
And Tim, did you want to speak at all to our merch?
I do want to speak to our merch because I have a fun surprise. Since Beast Wars, I actually added a shirt to our merch store.
La la.
You can find our merch store at redbubble.com. Just type in BulliedPod into the search bar and it will bring up all of our available shirts. Essentially, while I was editing the Transformers episode,
I was sitting in my chair and I wheeled around halfway through the episode and I said, that could be on a t-shirt. And then
Yeah.
I went back to my computer.
so Kai was listening and I made the comment, guns don't kill people, robots disguised as guns kill people.
Yeah.
And he said that could be on a t-shirt. And I was like, that could be on a t-shirt. I feel like it actually must be on a t-shirt because that is a joke based on a very popular NSA statement. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And so I Googled it. And to my shock and surprise, that joke is nowhere on the internet. So
They are pioneers.
we had an original thought, you guys. I don't know how that's possible because that is a good idea for a t-shirt. So that t-shirt now exists. Well,
I'm gonna say something, and I don't want this to go to your head.
okay.
This is a genuinely good t-shirt.
Are you looking at it right now?
We are, yes.
Aw, thank you.
I don't remember. Did you use my stylistic tricks on it? I don't remember.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that everyone knows, no pressure, But now that I'm making t-shirts based on how funny we are, I need you to make jokes that are easily marketable. A t-shirt depends on it. I don't know if I will get around to them, but in my notes on my phone, I have probably about 30 shirt ideas that I took from quotes that we had on the podcast. One of them is Lex Luthor's Tinder dating profile, and it'll say dislikes children and animals. But I figured to celebrate the end of season 3, I'd throw something new in there. So if you guys have recommendations or ideas, or you guys are all pretty artsy, if anybody else wants to design a shirt, we'll throw it up there.
Well, Tim, we're super pumped about these shirts. Thanks for the update, and we look forward to more. Boiling it down to one of our favorite listeners, Chance, do you know if Emma's still listening and if her favorite person on the show has changed?
My wife does still listen to these. However, she announced to me that her favorite has since switched.
To me?
No, unfortunately not. She has claimed that I am officially her favorite member of the podcast.
Oh,
you guys
my
got
goodness.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Well,
Biased.
Yeah, biased. I was sure that after the Follow That Bird episode, things were going to change in my direction, but...
That's a good point. Proof that we do not care about this podcast's success at all is that we do episodes like Follow That Bird. When we talk about what this podcast was supposed to be, just the four of us recording our conversations so that we could go back and listen to them down the road, and then other people started listening for some reason. If we cared about this podcast being successful, we would lean into the stuff that is popular. Muppets Tonight got caught in the algorithm because it had a big following. This season, probably Beast Wars is going to be our most successful episode, but we do it all. Follow That Bird failed at the box office. Of course it's going to fail to find listeners.
Okay, before we move on from your stats, you sometimes talk about listener mail. Is there anything, we might have had 2 listeners email us in the last year, we don't know, and actually we don't want to know because we'll be discouraged. But is there any highlights from those saying like, hey, I told my husband that he's my favorite, but actually you're still my favorite? Or...
Yeah, there was an email from Emma. I mean, there was an email from a redacted listener who said that even if they tell their husband that he's their favorite, that John will always be near and dear to their heart.
Okay, that was Nana.
That's from Nana. She's referring to the one time our dad was on the podcast.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, what is season 3 to us? When we look back at it compared to seasons 1 and 2, what did we do that's different or new, or what will this season be remembered for?
I'm on the side of high highs and low lows for this season.
Honestly, that is exactly how I would describe things here.
I experimented with AI, Adobe software for cleaning up podcast audio this season. And I feel like the episodes where I did that, it really robbed us of our personality. Those episodes I really do not like listening to. Those are low lows for me. How did people feel about the random movie generator episode?
I am more of a fan of it than I should be. I don't know if it was good, but it was fun.
What's That movie was fun to record. I rather enjoyed it. I don't know if it translated to being as fun listening back to it.
I just found that we laughed a lot less during that episode because we were just thinking so hard.
Sure,
that's we weren't really making fun of movies. We were just trying to guess them instead.
Yeah. I am still very impressed that we each guessed one movie. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't script that. But yes, the email input that I received was that it was confusing for listeners to follow. So unless we receive more feedback, I don't think we'd go back to that well. If you are listening and you did enjoy that episode, or you have ideas on how to make that kind of episode more successful or more fun, hit us up at bulliedpod@gmail.com.
New idea. One person picks 2 movies. The other 3, 2 of them watch one of those movies, and the other one watches the other. And you have to figure out if you have somebody in common in those.
Oh.
There's one person who
Mhm.
watched a different movie than the rest, and they have to pretend like they saw the right movie.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. I'm intrigued. Let me mull that over.
I would say another new thing this season was there was more shared hosting than before. Whereas Tim has typically hosted most episodes. He did 7 this season. I did 3, including this one. Chance did 2, and Kylan did 1.
My first ever.
Heyo!
Heyo.
One of the things that I noticed this season was that a lot of my favorite episodes over the last 3 seasons were ones that John had hosted. So I went back and I stole a couple things from your hosting style, and I've snuck them into the episodes I've hosted since, like Silverhawks.
Yeah, your introduction. Yeah, that.
You also brought introductions into Descendants with Jay-On and Chad's.
I know we're going to talk about favorite moments later in the episode, but I really love that I called Chad's that episode, and I just snuck it into normal conversation until at one point Guy was like...
You were saying it the entire
I was like,
episode?
did you just call him Chad's? And I was like, yes.
You were saying it the entire episode? I did not
That's-
catch that even on
That's
the
one of
second time
my
round.
favorite things.
Terrible.
Because he hated that name so much too.
I remember when you were going through the names for us for Descendants 2, and you're like, I'm Timmy. And they're like, what? Like, Evie. And all 3 of us immediately were so hostile at you for it.
But you couldn't even agree on why. You're like, oh, he just wants to be the main character.
Because it was terrible. That's why.
It is a bad name.
All of us were in agreement of the fact that it was terrible. We were trying to figure out why it was so terrible.
Is there anything else that stands out about season 3 as being different?
I think this is the first season where we had more remote episodes than in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tim, you had mentioned that maybe there was a different dynamic between us in person versus at a distance. Have we overcome that at this point?
My favorite episodes of this season are the ones that were in person, but there were some episodes that broke through that ceiling. Even though they were remote, I hold near and dear to my heart.
At the end of our first season, we were like, oh, wow, I didn't know we'd do a whole season or that people would listen. How are people now feeling at the end of 3 seasons in?
I think I'm most taken aback by the fact that when this podcast started, I still lived at my parents' house. And as of now, my wife is pregnant. Oh, that's weird.
It does feel like we've lived a lot of lives in 3 years.
Oh, it has been 3 years. Ugh.
When we started this podcast, we all lived in Grand Prairie. 4 episodes in, John lived in Kelowna. Then John came back, then Chance moved out. Kai and I moved to another province. There's been so much transition and change. I guess half of the members of our podcast have gotten married since we started this podcast.
Emily noticed that I had been chuckling a lot in the mornings while she was getting ready. So she was just like, what are you giggling about? But of course she finds out that I'm listening to our podcast for this recap episode. And she's like, that's so sad that the thing you find funniest is nonsense. To which I said, I get it from my brother.
I do find myself very funny.
At least I'm still having fun recording it and listening to it. I wonder if our listeners think it's nearly as funny as we do.
I was surprised. I was talking with somebody, and they were mentioning how they listened to the Ace Ventura episode, and they apparently were laughing super hard, like that was their favorite episode we'd done this season. I was taken aback by that, for one, because I was like, oh, you listen to our podcast? I can look you in the eye anymore.
That's the first joke.
Yeah. But I was surprised that people thought we were funny, too.
Was the Ace Ventura episode that funny?
And that's part of circling back to doing episodes about everything. Our listen counts swing wildly episode to episode. Certain people have certain interests and they're going to tune in for certain episodes where we hit on things that are part of their childhood or their nostalgia, and they may pass on others. Everybody's got their own niche. I'm funny in every episode. That's just the way it is.
Dad's niche is pride. I don't think this is a quote, but one of my favorite moments is attempted murderers. The joke in Three Ninjas that the only real ninjas were those who successfully killed people. Every time someone would be like, and so anyways, the ninjas in this movie, and you'd hard cut them off and go, you mean murderers, right? Every time that joke came back, it was even funnier than the last. Attempted Murderers has such a warm place in
That's
my
very
heart.
true.
I love it so much.
That whole episode is actually one of my favorite memories from this season. There isn't a single joke or moment. The recording of me in that episode is just me laughing the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I make a few jokes, but I mostly just laugh at all the other jokes that everyone is making. I think that episode is one of our strongest. Having Eric with us, it was a really strong dynamic, and I have nothing but positive things to say about that episode.
Eric is genuinely so funny. I don't care if Eric's watching this.
If you do think that Eric is funny,
You should...
Shameless plug.
Yeah, you
I
should
have
go
a
check out my second podcast.
yes, I have another podcast called Objectively Awful. I wasn't going to talk about it, but now I did.
Okay, so I've got some awards I want to hand out. And
Most shameless plugs?
and so when they come up, I might just award them.
Okay.
But we do have an award here called the Cross Promotion Award. This is awarded to the person who's most likely to use this podcast as a platform to promote another podcast. Tim did so in the Three Ninjas episode, Ernest episode, Nutcracker episode, Descendants episode, and now the recap.
Yeah,
And-
but there's so much contention for that award.
And to be fair, on top of that, he also talks about other things you should listen to. In Follow That Bird, you tell us to go watch Defunct Land.
That's a great place for
I know.
information. This isn't shameless, you guys. This is me giving call-outs to people in need. And sometimes it's
Most
me.
of the time it's you.
Tim, these awards are something to be hung on your wall.
Okay, well, send me the physical award and I will hang it on my wall.
Just so you know, Defunct Land has 2 million subscribers, so they're definitely in need.
Another one of my favorite moments this season was actually Chance's bluegrass impression.
Oh, thank you.
Legit. If I heard Chance's recording next to the actual episode, I could not tell you which one is the real one.
Thank you very much.
In Ernest Scared Stupid, and we're talking about the trolls and their weaknesses, we get on this tangent where we say that they're weak to Tide Pods, trucks, and blunt force weapons.
I really enjoyed the Fluppy episode. Just this idea that the Fluppy dogs have a taste for human blood and we're always out for world domination, and they're pushing Jamie to do illegal things.
Adventure, Jamie! Adventure!
We can talk about callbacks later, but I think that's our most popular callback from season 3.
The number one, of course, would be Praise Beethoven.
Oh, Chance coming in for a praise Beethoven.
Yes, look out for Weirdos, Praise Beethoven, and Adventure Jamie are definitely the three that personify our podcast the best. And one of those comes from each season.
Hopping on to some praise Beethoven. I did some counting. Kylan said it first during 5 episodes.
Dang! That's almost half the episodes.
Tim said it during 1 episode. Chance technically did it for this episode. Now here's the sticking point. I can confirm that I said it first during 4 episodes. However, at the Descendants episode at 47 minutes and 32 seconds, I cannot tell if it was Chance or my voice that said it. And I said it in Beast Wars, and then you guys were like, oh, Chance already said it. And I listened back to that episode, and I did not hear
I
Chance
knew
say it.
he was going to do this. So Chance, there was one part of that episode where you talked for a really long time, and I cut it. And so I think I cut from the recording the part where Chance said praise Beethoven first.
All right, well, that puts Chance at 2 then. But if everyone wants to listen to 47 minutes and 32 seconds at Descendants 2.
Actually, I don't particularly care about saying praise Beethoven first anymore.
Says the guy who's said it the most.
I do say
Guys
it the
making
most,
a New
but
Year's resolution right now.
A March Days resolution.
in one of the episodes, somebody says praise Beethoven, and I say, yeah, I don't really care. You can listen to the recordings. I say that.
Yes. I remember you saying that.
I'm just saying,
Praise
like,
Beethoven. It's not like I care anything, whatever.
Kylan, need I remind you that you were the one who said it last episode?
yeah, but in comparison to a season ago where I was rushing to say it, I think
We've
it's...
all grown up a lot in this podcast. 2 of the members of our podcast have gotten married. Kai no longer rushes to say praise Beethoven.
I'm trying to think of the things that have really changed for me in 3 years.
You have a praise Beethoven shirt.
I do have a praise Beethoven shirt. That is new.
One of my favorite moments, John borrows my score set on how to score a movie, and you call him out, Dad. You're like, oh, well, you gave Titan AE a 0. And just to make him know my pain, I chimed into John. I was like, oh, wow, it really sucks when people bring up your past ratings, doesn't it?
Do we want to talk about Chance's 11-point scale?
Oh, boy.
You started
We'll hop
this,
over to
Chance.
that in just a little bit when we talk about our scoring.
Don't forget to breathe. In and out.
I really appreciate your impression, Kylan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, another award that I would give out would be the Impersonation Award. This is the funniest and or most accurate vocal impression. This is a tie for me between Chance and Kai. Kylan did a really good Big Bird, and his Grover, whether it's accurate or not, is quite incredible. And then Chance had his Bluegrass, plus he also did the Mouse King and Nutcracker. Something about him having pink eye from the muffins thrown in his face. Another couple callbacks from Descendants. We had Awesome Balls.
Okay, so for
fair.
listeners, there is a part in Descendants 2 where the dog says amazeballs, and John thought that he was making a joke, and he referenced awesome balls, which is not a thing that people say. He got real defensive about it. He was like, oh, no one's ever said amazeballs before. So I tried Googling awesome balls, and it does not exist. Amazeballs is actually quite common. It was coined by a fashion blogger named Elizabeth Spiridakis. When she hung out with her friends at work, they would often add the suffix balls to the end of everything they said. And amazeballs was one that took off in the greater internet and pop culture. I haven't been looking for it, but I have been watching TV shows and movies since recording Descendants, and characters in both New Girl and Community say amazeballs. I do have a couple favorite quotes from this season. Ace Ventura was not one of my favorite episodes, but near the very end, John says, raccoons remind me of slugs out of nowhere. And it catches me off guard every time. Very funny. The beginning of this movie made me so sad.
I was expecting one of those John trauma dumps.
Yeah.
But instead we get a reference to the stupid Sleagle. I hate the Sleagle.
Tim, that's legal photo.
Yes.
Can that maybe be the thumbnail for this recap
No.
episode?
I will consider putting it in the corner. But
That was one of my favorite jokes too.
Didn't we do a bunch of math?
It was a joke that all animals are dogs.
And John
didn't like that.
He got really
logic.
hostile about it. And so then he had to say that all slugs...
I do have an award. It's called the Everything Award, and it's most likely to be everything, and I'm awarding it to slugs.
You made that up on the spot.
Most likely to be everything.
No, he has it written down. It's in his notes.
Okay, anyways, referencing the slug in the bottom right corner of the image for this episode, I've got Tom and Jerry's The Nutcracker pulled up, and I was like, oh, this movie was so good. We should do an episode on this. And then I find a picture of it, and I was like, oh, this should be the image for the episode. And Dad says, no, I'll just throw it in the bottom left corner. And in the bottom left corner, there's Jerry just staring at me. It was great.
I noticed that too, Tim. That was a nice touch.
Thank you. Another quote I love is from Land Before Time when John says something along the lines of no dinosaurs were harmed in filming this or whatever, and Chance makes a sarcastic comment about it being a dinosaur biopic. And then the other episode where I really am a fan of the quotes is Nutcracker Prince. Both nicotine-colored glasses and heavy eggnog came from that episode.
Oh, saying that we sold grandma is a part of the heavy eggnog. That was great too. John's ready to be done the episode and he's like, so we're gonna be celebrating grandma. And then Dad's like, we're gonna be selling grandma?
So that's actually kind of a weird... We actually talk about our grandparents a lot. We talk about Grandma recording Fluppy for us. We also talked about selling Grandma in the Nutcracker episode. And then we talked about Grandma being one of our older listeners when Tim mentioned stats. And then we found out that Grandma and Grandpa were
Buried at
residing in
Castle.
a graveyard at Hatley Castle.
That's right. Well, yeah. This is the season of grandma.
Oh, and I just... Kylan talked about my trauma dumping, and I hadn't really revisited that peeing my pants memory in Hatley Castle in a while.
That moment might be my favorite in the podcast. We're in a somewhat serious conversation about how Hatley Castle connects to everything, and you're like, yeah, that's really interesting. And I peed my pants there. And...
My favorite episodes are when John does something that I cannot foresee. In Nutcracker, I say, very rarely does our podcast elevate to something special or different, but we have someone here who's performed the Nutcracker music on stage. Do you have anything to add? And you're like, nah. And then, of course, I thought that I had brought interesting information to the table about Hatley Castle. You're like, actually, I peed there. So,
Alex, man.
gosh.
take that, X-Men.
Well, at the end of every episode, the four of us talk about, will we watch it again, or where would we rate it on a scale, or what kind of cookie would we connect it to? So maybe it's time we talk about each other's closing comments. Chance, let's talk about your 11-point scale.
Let's.
I don't have many comments. I've just come to accept that most of the movies and TV shows that we do, Chance will give a 2. I am intrigued, though, because he gave Descendants a -2, and he gave Descendants 2 a 3. But he said the first Descendants is better. So...
One can infer that Chance actually thinks that Descendants 1 is a 4.
In that episode, however, I made the claim that perhaps my view had been altered because the experience I had watching Descendants 2 was very enjoyable.
You know, Chance had talked about giving Ernest such a bad score because he had no one to enjoy making fun of it with.
Or keep him awake.
I kind of... Oh, he wasn't awake. Sorry, I have to pause the podcast to announce another award.
Ooh.
This is called the Narcolepsy Award.
Who's going to win this one?
This is to the person who's most likely to have missed parts of what we watched, but pretend otherwise. I'd like to award this to Chance. We talked about Chance falling asleep in both our Season 1 and Season 2 recaps. Maybe one of the ultimate falling asleep stories was with Ernest. I guess he maybe didn't fall asleep, but he was very insistent the whole episode that he was present. And then when we exposed enough of his lies...
He said, no, I saw that part.
And you guys were like, well, when did it happen? He's like, I don't know. And you're like, well, you just finished watching the movie.
That's the thing about little white lies. They add up. You gotta lie to cover the lie, to cover the lie, to cover the sleep.
No, my wife's mom had arrived, and I was helping her with her vehicle. But I
And?
had one earbud in, so it was just a very confused mishmash of earnest talk while other things were happening.
Yeah, that would give me nightmares. If I had an earbud in while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
I do actually really appreciate Chance's rating scale. It's something that's come to shape how I describe my interaction with media. So honestly, I can't think of a better system when it comes to reflecting on movies and TV.
Well, thank you.
Kylan, want to talk your cookies?
I have divided my cookies into 3 categories. Firstly, ones that are genuinely funny references to the movie. That's your hubcaps, dog poop, throwing
Gross.
cupcake. I have ones where it's just me quickly trying to throw something together. That's your cooked circles, your guano cookie. And then I have the ones where I come up with a cookie that's actually relevant to what the movie is. That's your fortune cookie.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes it's like your eyes are trained to watch for things that people eat in the movie, and then you just relate that to a cookie, and it's like, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
In other words, high highs and low lows.
Tim, you are known to say whether or not you'll rewatch a movie or a TV show. There was only 3 that you spoke with certainty that you'd rewatch 3 Ninjas, Silverhawks, and Follow That Bird.
Correct.
A lot of the other things you said, under very special circumstances, you might engage with them again.
Oh yeah, Chance and I are gonna rewatch Descendants.
I like it you didn't include the rest of us. It's just you and him.
This is gonna be like in the Batman movies when Two-Face wakes up and Joker is his nurse. Imagine him waking up from an accident and Dad peels back the mask and puts Descendants on.
Well, honestly, we've come up with some pretty cool strategies to get you to watch Descendants this season.
Kidnapping
I think the
you.
majority of them are just wait till I have kids.
We talked about at your bachelor party,
So
setting
upset
a
that
trap
that
for you
didn't
in
happen.
an escape room. I probably have the least defined system for reviewing a TV or movie. I was committing to write love letters, and I never wrote a single one.
In all honesty, I think your rating system is just, do I have nostalgia for this, yes or no?
Yeah, it mostly just like, let me just talk about my feelings for a little bit. Okay, what are some themes that we noticed throughout the season, or observations?
My wife mentioned to me that in her eyes, it seems like every other episode we bring up Newt, the discontinued Pixar movie.
I didn't remember us talking about that before.
Emma might just be re-listening to our episodes a ton.
Gotta hear John's voice. In the Fluppy episode, we talked about Negaduck, who in Darkwing Duck is the evil or opposite version of Darkwing Duck. It kind of got me thinking, would it be fun to do a Nega version of the podcast? Like do an opposite episode? What would that look like? And what would Nega John be like?
Follow that bird. So.
Yeah, just
You had
pick
to
a movie
step
I don't
out,
have
so.
nostalgia for. Yeah, that's kind of a fun idea, Tim. I don't know if any of you found this listening back to the podcast, but it was kind of sad. The conversation was going a certain way on the podcast, and then I was like, oh man, I have a really good joke I could have said, and then I actually say it in the podcast. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty predictable.
I noticed this season that we talked about John's energy versus other people's energy. I want to really dive into this because we've referenced it a number of times this season. So I didn't understand this for most of my life. It was outgoing and fun, but John, in my headcanon, always was able to take it a step further than me. He always was just a little bit more unpredictable. All of my world came crashing down about 1.5 years ago We were at an amusement park and we were in line for a roller coaster and it was over an hour. In an effort to pass the time and have fun, we started a chant like, the fun starts now! And we would just start yelling and we were trying to get the rest of the line hyped up. I have never seen my brother shrivel up so small as he did in that lineup. He was so embarrassed. It was a light bulb moment for me, and that's that John really likes other people to feel uncomfortable, but when they are not, he finds himself out of his comfort zone and he does not have enjoyment. That's Follow That Bird. He had a terrible time, opposed to Ernest, where his wife was watching with him and she said, this is the worst thing you guys have had to watch for this podcast. He had a great time. For future context, there isn't a situation where all four of us can be happy and enjoying ourselves. It's got to be at the cost of each other, and John embodies that.
That amusement park was actually really fun, though. I have a lot of good memories of that. Us all in that one log flume together.
There was this little ride where you could fit 3 people into a log and ride down this water ride. And there were 5 of us adults. We said, can we all get in one log?
And they said, if you can fit.
I think that was meant to be no, but we made it fit, so... It was very snuggly.
It was the best roller coaster experience I've ever had.
Aww.
In relation to Dad's point about the energy vampire, there were a couple times watching where I was like, why haven't I stopped talking? I know I'm just feeding John. And I think I've recognized a pattern in that fact. My obstinate need to be the cynic just feeds John eternally. The John monster gets bigger and bigger each time I open my mouth.
Phenomenal cosmic power!
I do want to give myself an award. It's called the Make Lemonade Out of Your Lemons Award. It's the person who's most likely to find joy in your suffering.
Make lemonade out of someone else's lemons?
It could also be called the Shredder Award or the Ernie Award from Sesame Street.
Ugh, that guy's the worst.
Stop fueling his love for Ernie.
The monster grows with each sigh of pain.
In season 2, Tim and Kai had seen Descendants playing on a TV in a restaurant. You watched a documentary that listed Beethoven's Second and Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. Has anyone noticed things from this season pop up in your life?
I think we've hit a strong niche with this season.
So I've said in the past that our podcast has a strong influence on pop culture. What gets a movie, what gets a remake, what gets a TV show. This season was a test. We picked things that are so far outside the realm of reboot possibilities that if we get a Fluppies reboot or another Three Ninjas movie, it's definitive proof of the footprint that we leave on this earth.
I really don't want to be the reason they make a new Ernest movie.
Too late, it's out there.
All right, well, I've got a couple more awards to hand out. The Gutbuster Award, the person who's most likely to laugh themselves to tears every episode.
Oh, that's me.
And I'm going to give that to Tim.
Are you going to mail me any of these awards, or what can I expect from
Yeah,
this,
he is
John?
getting a few of them.
I'm a minimalist, but I will hang them on the wall. There's lots of wall space.
Or that just say the word on it.
We've got the Stickler Award, the person who's most likely to correct someone on a minute detail. That goes to Kylan.
That's
I don't like that. When did this happen throughout the podcast?
Are you trying to correct him right now?
No, I'm asking him a question.
Like, let's say when Chance is like, Copper Kid comes from Planet Mime, and Kylan's like, no, it's Planet of the Mimes.
This has happened before, just so you know. At one point in time, I was in a foods class, and instead of doing things that are productive, we were doing BuzzFeed quizzes. And what I did was, which emoji are you? And it pulls up nerd emoji. So when you saying that I said it's actually Planet of the Minds. Anyways, continue talking about whatever. You had more awards? Give me a good one.
I don't like a nerd emoji.
I was going to make the joke, all the rest of his awards are dedicated to slugs.
I've got 2 left. I've got the Location Bragging Award. This is the person who's most likely to casually but also intentionally connect their city to every episode.
I wonder who that's going to go to. Are you just jealous? Is that what's going on here?
I think Tim's pretty proud of where he lives. And then I've got the Secrets Are No Fun Award. And that's when something's teased on the podcast, but it's not given. That's going to be Tim's variation on the Silverhawks song called Partly Old Guys, Partly Young.
I will never see the light of day.
Tim?
I'm not the one who promised people would hear it. You did.
All right, so this season we all submitted our favorite podcast episodes to our least favorite. Might have been about how much we laughed, how the conversation flowed, the nostalgia we had for the episode, the fun listening back to it. But just to keep in mind that just because an episode was ranked a certain way does not necessarily reflect on its host or the guests that appeared at it. So here they are, starting with the episode that got the least amount of points. In 12th place is Beast Wars.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, which I was surprised by. I mean, I had a lot of the nostalgia for that show, so I had a good time.
I'm actually not surprised by that result.
I made a shirt out of that episode.
Yeah.
Although I watched like 5 episodes of Beast Wars, I don't know if I was super invested in the conversation about it.
In 11th place is Treasure Planet.
Hmm.
In 10th place is Ace Ventura.
Yeah. I put Ace Ventura last.
We talked openly about how it doesn't age super well, but I also found some slug humor funny.
In 9th place was the What's That Movie experiment episode. In 8th place, Land Before Time 2.
That actually does frustrate me a fair bit. I don't understand how that's as high as it is.
What?
I like the episode.
It's last on my ranking.
Yeah, and it broke my heart that you put it last.
It was the best Land Before Time we've watched, but I agree with Chance.
In 7th place, Silverhawks.
Really?
Aw, that makes me sad. I really liked surprising everybody with the shirts and Chance hating his.
Just above Silverhawks in 6th place is Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Not in a bajillion years.
The movie that you were absent for. In 5th place is Fluffy Dogs. In 4th place is Follow That Bird.
John, do you care to share where you put Follow That Bird?
I feel like I was a pretty honest, fair, non-biased person. I put Follow That Bird in 7th place. In 3rd place is The Nutcracker Prince.
Nice.
Surprising.
Now, 2nd place has 33 points, but at a whopping 14 points ahead of it,
It's Three Ninjas.
with 47 points, is Three Ninjas.
Yeah, it checks out.
And 2nd place is Descendants 2.
I think that it does challenge Chance and Kai's statements about extreme highs and lows, because it sounds like we all appreciated different episodes, different amounts, with the exception of the top 3.
Well, I didn't put Nutcracker that high.
What? Nutcracker had so many jokes. Heavy eggnog, selling grandma,
Those are the 2 jokes, and they were at the final minute of
nicotine-colored glasses.
Wait,
Constant
John,
wait.
Ernest as number 1?
Gross, John.
What?
Other jokes from Nutcracker. Ahudore,
Okay, Ahudore's
ahudore.
But only because you ruined the episode by doing it.
Let's open with Alien's First Christmas.
It's terrible.
There's so many fun things that happen in that episode. John having the opportunity to talk about what it's like to perform Nutcracker and then being like, nah.
I want to point out that Three Ninjas almost has a perfect score, except John put Ernest Scared Stupid above it.
Tell
There
us
was
about
so many jokes about milk.
Milk! We're back here again.
There were some good jokes about John's allergies, people being lactose intolerant actually being trolls, but the part where John just said milk, 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 milk was not good.
So I do have a theory. I listened back to what our favorite or least favorite episodes were in previous seasons. I think the episodes we tend to enjoy most are ones that are about live action movies that are pretty cheesy from the 80s and 90s, followed by animated movies, TV shows, blockbuster hits, followed by our experimental episodes. So the live action ones have to be cheesy if they're old to some extent, whereas animation can hide the cheesiness a bit better. TV shows are hard because it's scattered, I think, and we're talking across season jumps. Blockbusters are already just too funny or too good in the first place.
My takeaway is that for the next season, I think we all would like to have Eric back. During the Three Ninjas episode, he offered to be back for Babysitter's Club. That would definitely be something I would take him up on. Do we want to talk about the future of the podcast?
Let's go there.
In the Treasure Planet episode, we talk about doing this podcast for 14 years. We make a comment like, yeah, there's 14 Land Before Time movies. My question to everyone is, what would the Bullied Nostalgia podcast look like 14 years from now? What would we be nostalgic for? Would the episodes 14 years from now be looking at movies like the most recent Black Panther movie? What does Bullied Nostalgia look like over a decade away?
I want to point out, by this metric, I have a teenage child already. Just so people recognize how long 14 years is from now.
Who's listening to your podcast?
No, they are not.
He could be a special guest. Or she.
Chance's child, if you're listening to this right now.
If you're catching up on old episodes, Chance's child.
This is like a time capsule for you. We don't know who you are yet.
But we're going to love you.
You're the chosen one, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. You are going to be passed down this podcast when you are of age. And you'll be the one heckling your dad's shows from his childhood.
We say that, but all the shows I watch are really good.
This podcast could be generational, you guys.
That's
I could put it in my will.
That's awful.
I will the RSS feed to Chance. I will all proceeds from Redbubble.
I'm imagining you're 70 and you're waiting to finally be able to stop doing the podcast until it enters Chance's domain.
I'm receiving all Redbubble proceeds, opening up the order log, and it's completely empty.
It's a generational foundation and it's nothing.
It's like in movies when people be like, no, you will take over the farm after I die. But it's just the podcast.
I live in the most expensive city in Canada. I have nothing else of any value.
You aren't literally passing anything down with the podcast.
Yeah, my login
The
to
viewer base?
Spotify.
The viewer base, is that all that you're passing down? That's like 6 people.
Done.
I'll be
You
dead.
might
It'll be
hear
5.
My
That's
Google account
All
password
that you would be-
is 7.
all that you would be passing down is those 7 people who keep on rewatching Boris and Natasha.
Okay, you guys, Boris and
You have
Natasha.
to get a Spotify account. I know you don't have one, but you need to get one.
Okay, Boris and Natasha, hear me out, you guys. When I was very young, I have a formative memory. I went to a place called Bullwinkle's. It was like Chuck E. Cheese, But the animatronics were all of Rocky and Bullwinkle characters. I knew that it went out of business in Edmonton. This last summer, Kai and I were down in Seattle killing some time. I pulled into a parking lot and my jaw hit the floor. We parked at a Bullwinkle's.
One of 3 that exist.
Yes, they still exist in the States on the West Coast. We went into this Bullwinkle's and Kai was like, "What's wrong with you? I've never seen you like this before." I was bombarded by every childhood memory. It was like I was a 4-year-old again. I went into the restaurant portion and I was like, "Do your guys' animatronics still work?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, can I see them?"
In relation to more Boris and Natasha, Kylan, do you remember watching the live-action Rocky and Bullwinkle?
I do.
My memory of that movie is surprisingly crisp. And if we wanted an anniversary to Boris and Natasha, we could see the other side of the coin.
Yeah, Jason Alexander and Rene Russo, I believe, are Boris and Natasha in that movie. We did a Jason Alexander episode of Muppets Tonight, so we like to keep it in the same wheelhouse. We always come back to the same people over and over again.
We have 3 people we watch.
Drew Barrymore, Rick Moranis.
Yeah, Rick Moranis.
And now Jason Alexander.
We've done some experimental episodes. What do experiments look like in the future?
Something I have mentioned in the last week that I would be interested in doing this season is we're coming up on episode 50 in season 4. So it would be fun to look back at what the whole podcast experience has been, what have been people's favorite episodes from the whole show. John handed out a bunch of awards today. Might be interesting to incorporate those too, but I think that a lot of our scoring and stuff like that would come from listener feedback.
If you have favorite episodes, tell us at BulliedPod@gmail.com.
Talking about listeners, I was thinking Chance had suggested in the Treasure Planet episode that listeners could suggest a movie. So we could put out 5 options to listeners and there could be a poll. And I don't know how that works.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be fun.
I really enjoyed watching the old commercials when we watched the Fluppy movie. I know that's a lot harder to put together commercials that we have nostalgia for, but that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And then Tim in the Nutcracker episode had the idea that we watch Christmas movies that we've never seen before. Then there was talk like, oh, is there such a thing? And we started teasing about Hallmark movies. I know this is a pretty big project. I don't know. But there's part of me that just wants us to do an entire season on Hallmark movies we've never seen before.
The intro for the Hallmark movies is just that very first part of repressed nostalgia. I've never seen this movie before.
Aliens vs. Christmas.
No. Why is Aliens vs. Christmas here?
It's always here. I was thinking we could also do a show or a movie that has gotten a reboot, seeing how it stacks up to the original media. Like, we watched the original reboot, but they've since come out with a reboot.
Oh, fascinating. I did have it in my notes to watch an episode of every version of Ninja Turtles, which is kind of the same idea. Yeah, I'm intrigued by that.
And there's also an untapped well in video games.
Chance had referenced the idea of doing movie versions of video games in a previous season. I'm intrigued by it, but I have a list of easily 100 movies and TV shows that people have messaged and said, this is something I would like to see on the podcast, whether it comes from one of the 4 of us or from email submissions. So adding video games to that list when we only do 12 a year would be tough to justify. It's just too much potential content.
That'd be like a new podcast.
That's right. Yeah, right now we have so much to work from.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is there anything else that people wanted to speak to as it relates to the future of the podcast?
I'm excited.
Although I would say media as a whole has probably gotten better as time has gone on. Kai and I, I'm sure, have a lot of things tucked away we'd love to share with you guys, like lunatics.
Yeah, I'm very happy that we don't have to just watch your garbage anymore. We can watch our garbage.
You guys are adults now, so you officially have nostalgia.
I think I had nostalgia before.
Nope.
But
Nope.
John asked early in this episode, what is new this season? This season, we shifted more towards this being each member of the podcast nostalgia. I don't know if it's going to be that ratio moving forward, but yes, we're probably going to do lunatics this season. So for anyone who's excited, if the Looney Tunes were superheroes, we got you.
I think that's Space Jam 2. Granny does a Matrix.
We're saving Space Jam 2 for Chance's kid hosting on this podcast.
Because Chance's kid will have so
I've
much
never
nostalgia
seen
for
Space
Space
Jam 2, you guys.
Your child will, though. Your child will have all the nostalgia for it.
I'm not showing my child Granny does a Matrix.
Chance, you won't, but we will.
Are you going to show her Jimmy Fallon Bunny does a Matrix?
Oh no.
All right, well, watch me do a Matrix. Look out for weirdos.
Watch me do a Matrix.
Adventure, Jamie, adventure.
We're rotten.
Rotten to
Rotten
the
to
core.
the core.
Don't forget to breathe. In and out.
Ducky!
We did a lot this season and then never brought them back.
No, it's true. We had a lot of dead callbacks.
I don't eat dog poo.
Okay.
Okay, anyways, we can end the podcast.
Yeah. Peace out.
Peace.